half of you aren't working, half of our team is working, half of our team is not working. But no matter what, we're happy to be here, answer some of the questions that we've gotten submitted over the last week, and dive in. I'm actually really excited to start today with a question that gets circled around a lot on a timing, on a process, on an issue. And that, a couple people asked us in this week's question on what is the deal and how do I decide whether I want to launch group services, aka like a topically based, moms group, anxiety group, a process group. So we're just kind of spearhead that general topic because we got a couple questions, whether it was from Lisa or James or a couple other individuals that were asking about like next steps. How do I launch groups? How do I do whatever? So we're going to give the quick 5 to 10 minute fragment around groups, the pros, the cons, the benefits in your private practice, the starting points, and take it from there. And we'll nail a couple other questions as well.
Yeah, I'll get us kicked off then. Groups as a whole, awesome idea, right? It's one therapist, it's one to a few versus one to one. Oftentimes the sessions can be cash, and it can add up to be more than the hour that you would get paid for insurance, and you get to serve more people. Plus, I think you get to sort of create a little bit of community. You get to foster a little bit of like collaborative learning and an interesting space. All in all, I think it's awesome. And there's certainly the science behind groups to support why they are successful. Now, to me, the downside for groups is the market is horribly uneducated on the benefits or usefulness of groups, and therefore isn't always seen as the way to get started with therapy. It requires a higher level of vulnerability, not only vulnerable with a stranger that is a therapist, like a licensed professional that just is also a stranger, but also actually complete strangers. And so there has to be something within a group environment that transcends this one-on-one therapy approach. And there's an education gap that exists there. And education gaps for businesses is not always very healthy because it costs a lot of money to educate people and then move them over to the actual sale.
Yeah.
And so just as like on a pros and cons level, they sound good, but I think it takes a lot more energy than you think. And with that being said, I know that there's really, really successful ways to take it. I know that the way that I would do it is probably not launch with groups. I would have a successful solo practice and then open up a few spaces to group sessions after you have a successful, and I mean successful, like fully successful, like you've filled up and you know how to market yourself, and then open up the groups as an option.
Yeah.
That's how I would approach it. Sort of put the oxygen mask on the business first before attempting to do something else. Plus, then it's not a shiny object. Then you're just moving on to the next logical thing. So,
Yeah, I think one of the big questions we get is, like Amber asked us this, and, in the mix of people who were asking us about groups this week, which is just like, well, how do I market my group then? And there are a couple good ways to market your group. Attilio hit the nail on the head on the education piece. Most users in the marketplace aren't being like, yes, I want to join a therapy group, or a therapeutic service or an X, Y, and Z. The only exception to that is some of, if you're doing like an addiction recovery program, there's some awareness that a lot of times, with 12-step program or some of those things, oh, well, that happens in a group setting or a community setting. So there's education in the market, but that's the number one barrier when you are trying to market is how do I educate my clients? So the best way to do that, even as Attilio said, is to make sure your practice is already full. And then we can actually take the overflow traffic of selling to current clients, because then we have the trust factor built. And if we have the trust built that I'm going to get results in a service that they recommend, then it's a lot easier to educate rather than educate and build trust to sell the service at the same time, which is what you're doing. Versus when someone comes to you for one-on-one therapy, all you're having to do is build the trust because they're probably mostly aware on what one-on-one therapy is, especially if you're using insurance, and they'll enroll it pretty seamlessly. So a lot of our practices that we've seen, solo practices and even large group practices, it's when, hey, we have a totally full caseload, even a wait list, and those groups are a great opportunity for current clients and new clients who can't see a clinician yet to be slotted into those community groups based off of topic basis, as well as what we would call an upsell or cross sell. It's, for a different example, you walk into McDonald's or you walk into a coffee shop is maybe a better example. You buy a coffee, but a lot of people also buy a pastry, and the margins on the pastries are significantly better and higher than it is even on the coffee, right? Because you can prepare those pastries beforehand and do all these other things. And groups can kind of be like that for your practice, but you have to have the traffic for the coffee to begin with if you want to be a coffee shop. Otherwise, you need to open up a bakery. And that's a totally different business model, right? So if we're just using the analogy here, once the traffic is there for the people coming in daily for the coffee, and that is still what we're mainly advertising and trying to be successful, it's a lot easier. Hey, you're getting coffee. Do you also want to join my group? I actually made this recommendation to some people who like to do like walk and talk therapy or integrative services like yoga or other mindfulness things that can happen in a group setting. But the results that they want to see with their clients, they also need those one-on-one services. So what you could do is you could sell in a package or in a processor just as an add-on, one time a month or one time a week, where you have that group that's at the same time and it's open-ended for a smaller cash pay amount or whatever it is to come in and join that local walk and talk process, or that yoga online or in person, or whatever it is that you want to include on a group level. If you work with a lot of moms and perinatal services or other related things, right, you could host some sort of community process and workshop. So this is all to say, the best place to market your groups is to your current client set and the current people who are already contacting you. And in the short term, the best way to fill out your groups is actually to still focus on your main practices marketing before going to market your groups explicitly.
Yeah, I think this kind of reveals something interesting too. When you're working with your clients or the people who are already coming to you, there's a little bit of trust already built. And so, what it allows you to do is sell and figure out how to sell a group to people who already kind of like or kind of trust you a little bit. And so, what that does is give you invaluable amounts of information on what's going to work and what could work when you maybe just decide to rip the band-aid off and go all groups, or do
Yeah.
groups at a higher degree and maybe market it as an independent thing. So focus on figuring it out and figure out how to do it with your clients, the people who know, like, and trust you already, or the clients inside of your practice, or the people who are already seeking you, aka through ads or through directories or whatever. Then understand what will work, what will sell, and then you can try to do some interesting like marketing for groups. Throw it up on Eventbrite, see what the reception is. Maybe if it doesn't sell out or sell to a certain number, you don't run the group, and you can explicitly state that, just refund the
Yeah.
people. Just because ultimately, like, there's education and there's like a desire that needs to get built. And so
Yeah.
if that doesn't exist, you're going to be struggling forever. You're really going to be
Yep.
struggling forever.
And, just as one last piece of suggestion, this is a scenario where having social media and scaling your practice and your following with social media, or doing what we call list building. So newsletter, social media, other related things, where beyond just the one-to-one phone calls that you're having to enroll people in one-to-one therapy, this is where, if you start doing what we would call a list building tactic and nurturing them, you can re-offer services to them at different points. So weekly newsletter, a blog following, even like a reserving it in a Facebook ad list. That's what's called a retargeting ad. Or if you have a couple thousand or a couple 100,000 followers on Facebook ads, there's a couple big people who I think have really ethical approaches to what they're posting on social media right now. And they fill out groups, online workshops, and some of those things in still a very therapeutic, focused way, without dipping into like they are a coach, right? And so I think there's some ways that when we get more advanced in terms of marketing, that next step would be what we would consider list building and reserving your market in that sense of things. And because we had a couple other questions specifically, Adrian asks us, what's the best way to use Facebook ads to build your caseload? And I think this is adjacent because we do see Facebook ads sometimes working for launching groups, and the roadmap to do it is a little bit the same. Running great Facebook ads starts with a great offer. Attilio, can you talk a little bit about the importance of an offer on Facebook ads and Instagram ads specifically?
Yeah. So with the context of Facebook, we're putting an ad that's going to people. It's like considered push marketing. That's the category. It's push marketing. We're putting something in front of people that maybe weren't looking for it right then and there, right? They're on Facebook because they're looking for entertainment. And so an offer is essentially the bait that's hanging on your fishing pole. And so, your little fishies are swimming by. You put your fishing pole in the stream, and if you have bad bait, those fish are not going to bite, or it's going to make it very difficult for them to bite on what it is that you've got. And so, quite frankly, you can have the best ad in the world, but if the offer isn't something that people want, no one's going to take you up on it. And the converse situation to that would be you have the best offer in the world and a bad ad. People will still take you up on that ad, despite the fact that it was bad, quote unquote. But the bait was just so good that they went and grabbed it. So an offer is a piece of bait. It's a piece of I call it like an olive branch sometimes. It's kind of like a peace offering. Hey, give us a chance um, for this reason.
Yeah.
That's how I'd explain it. Yeah, offers big piece of Facebook ads. And I guess to continue on, if that's all right, the next highest components that are probably most beneficial for Facebook advertisement is going to be your media. So like the picture or images that you're using, and then the copy and headlines. And I'd say as far as Facebook ads go, if you're like trying to get them to work, keep it super simple. Use lead ads and just use the in form, whatever it is, the Facebook form as an option. Just keep it super simple. Less things can break that way. Um, it could be better, but it also could be way worse. And so
Yeah.
just use the Facebook lead forms.
Yep. We do have some other lives if you search for in our YouTube or Facebook to dig into Facebook ads specifically. So maybe go revisit some of those marketing processes, tactics. And I want to answer one last quick question here before we wrap up today. Let's get the name of the individual that asked it. But essentially, Anne Marie asks us, what are the best social media channels by generations? And so I think this is just a quick, throw it at the wall. Facebook still has a massive populace of individuals of all age ranges. There's the idea, the premise that like, oh, only like middle-aged to old people are on it now, or some of those things, but maybe separating from people who are like young, like high school or lower, I'd say anyone at a volume that you could still build a business off of is still on Facebook. And then that's especially even more true. I'd say there's probably no age discrepancy on Instagram. They have billions upon billions of users across all age ranges right now. Instagram is continuing to grow and continuing to get market share. Same with YouTube. YouTube, even more so, is a pretty neutral. So I think my first comment is to say that those three platforms are actually pretty neutral. Other than if you're trying to reach like high school students in a direct, like visceral way, you're probably going to be able to build something on a marketing level or on a social posting level that reaches the audience that you want. And then, of course, you have like TikTok. It's also perceived, oh, well, TikTok is the new up and comer, it's younger generation, but TikTok's main user base is like 20 to 45 years old right now. And yes, tons and tons of young kids are on it, but also to affirm that almost all of the people you'd want to find on a social posting level or on an ads level are in TikTok as well. All of those platforms have hit a large critical mass. And so, yes, there in theory is some generations, but I think it's more how does the user interact with the organic content and with the paid content, and can you accomplish the goal you're looking for through that process? So YouTube is video driven. TikTok is 100% video driven. Instagram is a little bit of video as they're growing that out, but like images, especially ads and otherwise, still are going to win to a degree on Instagram. Facebook, you can get away with the full range of things because it's the most mature platform out of all of them. And down the rabbit hole we go. But the main thing I just wanted to point out is generationally, you can find anyone you want to find probably on any of the platforms. What matters is catering your content to how the platform wants it to be posted.
Yeah. The only thing I would add to that is, and that's exactly how I would have said that. You are not spending enough money on the platform in form of ads or making enough content that the generational curve that exists on the platform would matter to you that much. And so deliver great content. That's going to be in contextual content, the way that the platform wants you to serve content and the way that the platform works. But you're probably not spending near enough money where like Pepsi or something or like Coca-Cola would be like, oh yeah, TikTok's got our 13 to 24 because we're producing this content. And so maybe we need to make more like that's not going to exist likely for a lot of small businesses. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. I hope that that helps and doesn't feel bad when I say.
And and the last comment, because it always comes up with social media, heavily drill into one platform, own it, scale it out, deliver consistency in that platform, optimize for one platform first, and then if you have bandwidth or help or whatever, cross post, add an extra, deliver into second, third, fourth process. So I think that's it for this week, guys. We'll catch you later.
See you guys.